Hello and welcome to this B1 Usability Package e-learning session. Today's topic will be mandatory fields, where we'll be looking into the more advanced topics of this module. If you haven't seen already the basic session on mandatory fields, it is recommended to do so. My name is Rasmus Wolf Jensen and I will be presenting this session. We will in this session go into the following items. We will have a look at the basic behind what actually happened when we made the first mandatory fields, in particular with the form types and the item UIDs. We will look at mandatory UDFs or user-defined fields. We will go into looking at how to make multiple empty values. We will also go into seeing how to use the mandatory fields add-on onto other add-on windows besides the standard windows in Business One. Finally, we will go into the user setting options and the import-export features. So let's go into Business One. Okay, so this is where we left off. We had on the sales order added 3 mandatory fields, one on customer reference number, profit center, and sales employee, and we had it up and running. So we had some colors on it, and that worked really nicely. So let's go in and see the configuration and get into a few more details on what actually happens. So the way you go to the configuration, if you want to go manually, you go to Administration, Add-ons, Usability Package, Module Configuration, and the Mandatory Fields configuration. In here we can navigate different configurations. In this case I only have for the sales order, but imagine you have for business partner master data window, item master data window, and so on. So what we have here is what did we actually fill in. It all comes from the system information, which we turned on view system information. So the first thing we put in, or the system put in for us by the simple right click we did, was the form type. And in this case it was form type 139, which was the form type of the sales order. So if I hover the mouse over the sales orders, some of the fields in the sales order, you will be able to see that is form 139. So that was the way the configuration knew that we had put mandatory fields onto the sales order. It gives us back the description of the window, so it's very easy to understand that 139 equals sales order. It put in an add and update UID, we will look at later on in this session. We then said that this check should happen during add and update. Actually, we only in the previous session showed you that you can do it on update mode. But for example, if I go to one of the previous I'm put in and remove the customer reference field and try to update it, you will see again that it's mandatory, or in this case warning only. So you can also work with this in update mode. I will just turn off this warning only so we can better see the features here. Yeah. Okay. So we have the option if something should only be mandatory in add mode but not in update mode. We have the option. We saw that the mandatory field could be set for a color. Default there's no color, but you can put on a color as you like. You should be consistent on putting on the same color throughout the entire Business One. Okay, so then we had 3 mandatory fields equals 3 lines in our configuration. So again, just like 139 as form type, we needed to tell the system what items there were in the system. So if we hover the mouse over the customer reference number, we will actually see that that's item 14, and that was the reason it was put in here. Again, the description was you could set it to anything you like. So if you have changed this to say something else, You could again also put it in here, give some comment on remembering to put it in. Whatever you would like for the description. Then we put a mandatory field on line level, and since line level consists of both an item UID, you can see in this case 38, and a column UID, which is in this case column 30, sorry, you will see that item UID is 38 and column UID is 30. Also lines, since we have always a line here, line 4, which is not in use, we need to say that we need to ignore last row. If we didn't do this, it will actually come up, and we can try to do this. If we do it like this and try to update this, putting the field, it would say that we needed a profit center. And that is not correct, because item 4 or line 4 is not in use. But imagine if we went to a customer and we, for example, in the payment system put a lot of payment methods in, and some of them was mandatory. There's not an empty line. So we in some cases we will see that business 1 have an empty line, and in other cases we will see that it doesn't have an empty line. So that is the reason why you have this option. Sorry, let me close this window. Final thing on each configuration was that we could set the empty value, and in this case it was the sales employee that we set as the no sales employee equals empty value, and that was the reason we put it in here. We have the option to go on and make multiple empty values. For example, if we for some reason had that Brad Wilson was not working in the company anymore, he would not be a valid value of mandatory fields, because it wouldn't make sense to have new sales orders be put in with Brad Wilson as the sales employee. So we would be able to go on and say that he would not be a valid value. So all we need to do is we need to just find out what his value is. That is 1, if you can see in the lower left corner. So we have the option to say that both -1 and 1 is empty values, and we split those with a semicolon. If you for some reason don't know this or forget it, remember always that we have the F1 help file where we could go in and see, and we could go into our empty value, and it would say that we would be able to separate it with semicolon. So always remember, if in doubt, you have F1 as context sensitive help. So if I update this, we can now, it's not of course possible to have sales employee as no sales employee, but it's also not possible to go on and have Brad Wilson, only until I choose one of the ones that is not an empty value, I'm able to update. So I can put on as many as I want here, simply put in a new semicolon, the next value. We then saw the warning only system that we can use, and you can also, if you have a configuration that you don't use anymore but you don't want to delete it, you can simply disable it by not making it active. Okay. We will later go into what the user fields and the import-export fields, but let's first go and see another demonstration. So in this case it was nice, we could click on any of these fields and make them mandatory, but if we were to put in the user-defined fields, and you can see I have a UDF1 here, I wouldn't be able to simply right-click this and make it I don't have the option to say make this mandatory. And the reason for this is you can't have a field out in the UDF sidebar which is mandatory. But you have the option to say that if you put this field onto the main window, then you can make it mandatory.